Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to an all-new track guide for an all-new circuit in Formula 1. We're talking about the Algarve circuit, of course, ahead of this week's Portuguese Grand Prix. And oh my goodness, what a track. This is just going to be spectacular and I cannot wait. So we're going to take a good look around the entire lap, stopping on our way around as we always do. And then at the end, we'll do a continuous flying lap and talk about where the opportunities might be, where the biggest challenges might be, and what's happening to the car as it goes all the way around. But you're going to enjoy this one. Okay then, here we go, on to the start-finish straight then, and we've got the pit building of course to the right-hand side, grandstand to the left, heading down this long straight. It'll be a DRS zone, but this is flat out down here. We go over a crest, and then look, in towards the first corner, but it's a very, very fast right-hander, tucking into the apex, and then we come into an absolutely flat out right-hander of turn 2, and it's only when we get to turn 3 here that we get the first proper braking zone and proper corner on the entire circuit. Big sausage curbs to the inside, you've got to be very careful of those, but also at the exit of turn 3 you've got to compromise your exit because look what's ahead of us. Okay then, so for turn 4 we've got to get the car back over to the right hand side because we're going through a very fast left-hander, look, uphill, and at this point you can just about see the crest. You can't even really see the apex because it's some way round the corner, and there's absolutely no way you can see the exit of this corner, so you're kind of going in blind. Up we go then as the car compresses as it hits that rise, climbs up towards the top, trying to work out where the best point to apex is, and it's just over the crest. Using the red and white curb there, the car wants to go light. Here, a little bit like when you go over a bump in your road car and your stomach lifts up, doesn't it? Well, that's exactly what's happening to the car. All the load is coming off all 4 tyres at a point where you want to have the throttle absolutely buried. Now, if you're losing that downwards pressure, that downforce from the tyres because you're going over a crest, it's very easy for the back end to snap out and spit you off into the gravel traps. But out you come then, hard on the throttle, running over the exit curb. Now the exit is crucial because look what's ahead of us, another straight. Okay then, bouncing over the curves but getting the throttle buried as quickly as you can, getting the car stabilised out of that corner so we can get a good launch onto this straight. Again, look, the circuit falls away in front of us, so we've got a downhill braking zone here into turn 5. The first big overtaking opportunity, in fact the first overtaking opportunity of any description of the lap, is a big lunge down the inside into this slow, tight hairpin. The big yellow sausage curb to the inside there, typical of this circuit. You've got to stay off them because they're huge, but they're also a good marker point for clipping the apex, getting around there, and again, early on the throttle because we go into another, climbing uphill here, but another flat out section of the racetrack. Okay then, once we've got that launch out of the corner underway, we're flat, hard on the throttle, the circuit veers to the left hand side, again, blind over the top of another crest. Trust that you're making the apex there, keeping the throttle absolutely buried. Only now does the next corner start to come into view, and even then, only just. So we're staying over to the left hand side, we're going to throw it into what is actually a very fast right-hander. Probably still flat in a modern Formula 1 car, at best just a lift. But this is a difficult part of the circuit because there's another couple of complex corners coming up. Clipping the apex then as we go, and then here we've got a sharp right-hander, as you can see, going up a really steep incline. The really important thing to do here is to get the car straightened up as soon as possible out of that corner. Get the steering wheel straight, get the car's aero platform level. That's how we get the correct braking, or the most stable braking, going into this next turn. As soon as you put any steering lock in through the steering wheel like this, it pitches the car over to one side. It puts a little bit of crossweight in very deliberately to try and load up what would otherwise be an unloaded tyre going through corners. But if we want to be braking, we want that loading of the tyres to be equalised between either side, so stabilising and levelling out the car, and the only way you can do that realistically is by braking in a straight line. Okay, so aiming for the end of that red and white curve, braking in a straight line, and then we turn in, and look what's ahead of us. Look how far around the corner that yellow sausage curb is. That's how far round this turn we need to apex. So the car needs to be over here to the left hand side, turning in late, clipping the corner just by the yellow sausage curb, and then look what the view is that presents us at this point. We're climbing massively up. All you can see is sky. You can't see your exit curb. You don't know what's coming next, but the car needs to run out as far as the red and white curb here. About here, around the crest of this hill, you need to be hard back on the throttle, flat out again, and again the car wants to lift as it rises over the crest and go light. Very easy to get a massive snap of oversteer, but then we need to bring the car over towards the right hand side as early as we can, because the roller coaster like circuit just falls away down a really steep drop in front of us, and what you can see there ahead and to the left is a flat out turn 9 that again goes uphill, so we need to be all the way over to the right hand side to maximise our speed through that corner. We then go over the crest, just like when you go over the top in a roller coaster, down a very steep hill. Speed is absolutely maximised. The car compresses at this point, all the suspension bottoming out, hoping that the bottom of the chassis or bottom of the plank does not hit the floor, because then you will lose grip. Clipping the apex to the left hand side there, flat out up the hill. Again, another blind corner ahead of us. We're going into a braking zone where we can't even see which way the circuit goes. This is what the drivers will be figuring out over the course of Friday, where the best turn-in points are, where the best braking zones are there any references around the circuit that can help them with that. But up we come over the crest once more, again car going light a little bit, and we're turning in. This is almost like a double apex corner here. We're using the first one to try and slow the car down. Again, this is one of those really tricky corners where we're braking and turning at the same time, and in this kind of instance it's very easy to lock a tyre, snatch a wheel on the way in and cost yourself loads and loads of time, let alone flat spotting the tyres. So a flick on the brake balance on the way into this sequence of corners, a percentage or half a percentage backwards on the brake balance, so the rear axle does more of the braking, just takes a little bit of pressure off the front, allows you to brake and get that corner weight balance or unbalance into the car. We're trying to cut into the apex here, but then figure out what's coming next. Not just this corner, but the corner ahead of us. We can allow it to run a little bit wide, but look, again, roller coaster like, almost ribbon like circuit. We can come out wide, we've got some runoff beyond the curb, so it doesn't matter too much if we do go beyond that, but track limits are going to be a big feature of this weekend, because there is time in abusing some of these track limits. We've got to then get the car back over to the right hand side, because again, look, a cambered corner, an uphill corner, flat out. So as we sit here looking at the sky ahead of us, the circuit disappears round to the left hand side. It's a relatively tight corner, but I'm pretty sure we'll be flat in a modern Formula 1 car. The amount of aero loading that's on the car at this point, pushing all four tyres into the tarmac, and that's certainly one of the things that the teams will be playing with over the course of Friday, working out which rear wing is going to suit the mechanical grip that the car already has. How much grip do these tyres have on this particular surface? A surface that was only relayed a couple of weekends ago, so nothing that any team has any relevant data on, the grip levels for these temperatures, and then balancing that out with aero. So up the hill we go, late braking into this corner, very late because of course gravity is also trying to slow the car down as it climbs up this steep slope. That means we can leave our braking much later, but we've got to get out as wide as we can, turn it in. Again, look how far round the apex is, a long way round the corner by the yellow sausage curb there. Very slow corner, and again over the apex where the car once again, very easy, wants to step the back end out. And we're going to the third and final sector of this racetrack. I think a part of the lap that the drivers are going to love. So over towards where those cones are, running out as wide as we can, because the first part of this sector slightly frustrating. We've got to turn it in, we're going back downhill again here, so speed's really starting to increase, but this corner tightens up the further you go around it. Very easy to run very wide at this point, but now we are just flat. We are building speed, slight climb as we go over another crest, but this is flat out and is going to be an incredibly impressive corner. The drivers, I'm sure, are going to love this. The speeds through here are going to be incredible. It's really very wide, but of course it leads on to the start-finish straight, so absolutely critical to get through that final sector, not just the final corner, but the final sector as quickly and as cleanly as possible. It's a stunning, stunning circuit. I was lucky enough to drive this circuit myself last year, which you may remember from a video. I will link it in the description, because this is a proper, I know I keep saying roller coaster, I can't think of a better way to describe it. It's up and down, it's got cambers, it's got these blind crests which are going to play havoc from a driving perspective, from the driver's perspective, but from an engineering perspective, of course, it's a feature that you don't often get on a racetrack. You're not often having to manage upwards lift on a car, and that's what you get as you go light, as the car goes light over the top of a crest. It's a nightmare to manage, because everything you do around a racing car is designed to push it into the tarmac. That's how you get your grip. And yet on many occasions around this corner, this circuit, you're doing the opposite of that. You're rising up over a bump, the car is lifting, wanting to lift all four tyres off the circuit. If you do that, you lose traction, you can't get the power down, you lose lateral grip, and the car wants to step out or understeer off to one side. This is a circuit that's actually really quite tough on tyres, or it certainly puts a huge amount of stress through the tyres. Pirelli are bringing the hardest three compounds in the range because they just don't really know. That may well end up being quite a conservative approach, but they just don't know what a 2020 Formula One car will look like around this circuit, what characteristics or what loads and stresses it will put through the tyres. But that's one of the biggest jobs that all the teams and drivers and Pirelli themselves are going to have to be looking at on Friday. As we get to Friday afternoon in FP2, the first half an hour actually is going to be a blind tyre test that everybody will have to take part in, testing what will be next year's variation on these tyres. So unmarked tyres, nobody will know what they're running. Pirelli will come up with a run plan that they will keep secret, and the data from all of that will go into finalising and hopefully signing off the tyres that will be on the cars next year. So a huge amount of work to go into this Friday and these 2 or 3 practice sessions before we get into the business end in qualifying. The teams will have done a huge amount of preparation in the simulator, but as I said, the circuit's just been relayed. So a track walk on Thursday is going to really start to pick out the detail of where the curbs are, just how aggressive they are, which ones you can run over, which ones you can't, which areas of the circuit, and they're definitely going to be some where you can gain time by pushing track limits, but the FIA have already said they're going to clamp down on those. So where do you have to be super careful, and where can you perhaps take a few liberties? So a huge amount of work, as I said, balancing the aero load with the grip that your car delivers. Going to be a lot of work in managing things like the roll stiffness of your car with anti-roll bars. How much pitch and dive are you going to allow the car to have to deal with the various, some big braking zones here where you get longitudinal forces through the car and through the tyres? How do you manage that weight transfer with your sprung setup? And then when you go through these fast changes of direction, how stiff or how loose do you want the anti-roll bars to be to allow that weight transfer over from one side to the other to load up the outside tyre and therefore give you grip? Roll too much weight transfer goes over and it can it can overload the outside tyres, and again you wind up the tyres too much, you overload, you lose grip, and eventually you overheat and wear tyres too. So a huge amount of learning, perhaps more so than we've had at most circuits, of course, and I love that. This is going to force the teams out onto the racetrack. It's going to force them to work hard, let alone the bits they need to be testing that they didn't get an opportunity to test in the Nürburgring just a couple of weekends ago. So I think it's going to be fascinating, really, really interesting to see who comes out on top here, because it's not an easy circuit to learn. And that's what they're all going to be doing over the course of Friday morning. So keep your eyes peeled, look out for all those little details that I've shown you, that I've pointed out, and I'll be learning and watching with interest to find out how this actually plays out, because this is a massive learning curve for all of us. Can't wait though. Mega, mega circuit.